Question on one of my recent videos, I was talking about why I'm really glad I started LeetCode. And this person asked, I always face issue in moving forward. I start to learn something and then suddenly some new technology comes across and I start to think that the one that I'm learning is a waste. So I leave it and move on to the next. Like this, I'm never able to learn or focus on one thing. How did you find that you should focus on this? What will help me in getting a job and being successful? So this person, from what I understand, is trying to get their first software engineer job. And I can really resonate with this question. One of the crazy things about being a software engineer is that there seems as if there's so much to learn because, and there really is, there is so much to learn. There's actually infinite to learn. It just keeps going and going. And as you start to get into the space, you realize that there are a lot of things that seem really important and are really important. There's LeetCode, there's system design, there's building a project, there's cloud computing. I've been spending a lot of time on cloud computing recently, which is, how to deploy systems in the cloud versus just in your local machine. There's all this work in that I don't know much about in the whole ML space, how to actually build these large language models. I use AI to write code, but I'm a web developer. I'm not building large language models. There's that. There's things like computer vision and robotics. There's so much in technology. So how do you focus? How do you figure out what to focus on? I do think I can help here. It is a tough question, and I can really resonate, especially when I was trying to first get my first tech job. I also faced this. Back then, what I focused on was React. I went really deep into React, or at least as deep as I could into React. And I got good enough at it where I was able to answer React interview questions and get a front-end developer job. This was back in 2017. So what should you do now? So I'm gonna give you what I would do right now in 2026. And I really believe if you focus on these three things, then it's not gonna be a waste of your time. You're not gonna have wasted effort. So let's get into it. The first, these three pillars, I'm gonna list them off and then we'll get into them one by one. The first pillar is LeetCode. You probably saw this coming. The second pillar is building and shipping a product. And the third thing is gonna be applying to jobs in the right way. So let's get into these one at a time. LeetCode, why LeetCode? So here's what I believe tech companies are expecting nowadays from a software engineer. They're expecting you to have much higher output than before because you have AI. You have this tool. It's almost like a companion that can help you build things way faster. But at the same time, you can't be 100% reliant on it. You need to be able to guide and verify what this thing is doing and question it and make sure that you understand every single line of code that you are committing. You can't just prompt this thing to write something and then commit it. You have to be able to prompt it, question it, say, does this actually make sense? Is this actually gonna work? Okay, is this code actually good? Is it performant? Will it work for 5 users but fail for 1 million? Is this leaking sensitive information? Am I putting stuff I shouldn't be putting into the code base? You need to be able to ask those questions, read the code, and be able to confidently say yes or no. And so companies are expecting you to be able to output more, but at the same time, they're expecting you to be able to be able to code and to be able to code at some level without AI. And so that's where this LeetCode factor comes in. If you can solve LeetCode questions without the help of AI, you are building the skill of being able to code by yourself, being able to solve questions without AI. Now, I recommend that you use AI to understand how to code or how to solve some of these questions. I am on a LeetCode journey right now, and I use AI all the time because it can explain things to me in many different ways. 12 different ways, and I can keep talking to this chat until I actually understand the question, and then I leave the chat getting a deeper understanding of this data structure and how to solve this thing, and that's really important. So use AI to learn, but the goal is to eventually be able to get to the point where you can solve these LeetCode questions by yourself without AI. So by investing time in LeetCode, you're building that proficiency, that coding proficiency where you are not going to be overly reliant on an AI tool. The second thing is building and shipping a product. And this I actually recommend using AI as much as you can. So use AI as much as you can. Again, make sure you understand every single line of code that you commit to your own repo, but build and ship something. Get something actually over the finish line. Think of some sort of gap that you've identified and try to fill it. You know, I'll give you a free idea right now. This is an idea that I don't have time to pursue right now, but it's free. I mean, I think this is a good idea. The profile picture on my YouTube avatar, I built using a profile picture maker back, I don't know, a year ago. But I tried doing it again with an upgraded photo a couple months later, and the site was just down. And then I tried a little bit later, and the site was just down. And it seemed, and I couldn't find a better site to do it. And this was at the time. And so I think a really good, maybe this need has already been filled, but I think a really good little micro SaaS project would be building a profile picture maker and actually deploying it, putting it on the web, getting actual users to use this thing to create profile pictures. Maybe you get it so popular that you can put some sort of AdSense or charge your users. If you were to actually build this project and ship it, and actually there was a URL where people could go in and build this and create a little profile picture for LinkedIn or for YouTube or for Instagram or whatever, if you were able to actually build this, you're going to learn so much. You're going to learn so much. You're going to be, even though you're going to be coding with the AI, you're going to learn, okay, how do I actually do this? You're probably going to learn about like resizing photos, cropping things. There's probably going to be some sort of code package that you have to download to learn how to like crop a photo and resize it and get the image sharp. Maybe you have to have some background color. You're going to be solving all these problems. You're going to understand. You're going to learn about UI. Where does a user expect to click, to upload? What is their experience like? How do you store the photo for temporarily as you're processing it? All these things. Like, are you going to have them sign in and save their stuff? If you do, where do you save their photos? Maybe you need to use something like Amazon S3. How do you actually deploy the website? Maybe use something like AWS Amplify to like, I think is Amplify. Let me look this up. Amplify. Yeah, deployment platform. Yeah, you're gonna solve all these things. You know, you're gonna have to learn all this stuff to figure out how to get this to work. Maybe eventually you charge payment. You're gonna have to work with some sort of payment API because you don't want to write all that logic yourself. So you're gonna just learn so much by building and shipping a product, and that would really impress a company. If you could actually say, hey, here's a product that I've shipped, check it out, and I actually have users, and it's just you're gonna learn so much, and the reason why that's so cool is because that's gonna also teach you like a lot of really necessary skills for on the job. You're gonna learn source control. You're gonna learn how to use tools like Git, how to push stuff to a remote repository like GitHub. You're gonna learn all these things, and a lot of that is direct stuff you're gonna be using on the job, where your product is gonna come to you and say, hey, for example, for me, product comes to me and says, hey, Rishi, we need to build this feature. And then I have to understand why we're building that feature, why it's important. And then I have to go build it. And I have to, create a feature branch and build this thing, and then try to create a pull request and get other engineers to take a look at my code and see if it's good. And they're going to poke holes in it and ask me why I did things. I have to be able to defend it. You're going to be going through a lot of this if you build and ship a product. You're going to be thinking, okay, I'm building this way because of this, and I can't do it this way because this is going to cost me a lot of money if I do this. And you're going to be doing all these mental exercises that you would have to do once you get on the job. So by doing these two things, we're essentially building up like your modern day skills, the modern day skill you need. Again, and a company expects you to be able to code to some level completely by yourself, but also to be able to use AI to build things really quickly. So you're going to be able to, by having these two pillars, LeetCode and a person and a project, you're building these both. So these are the two pillars to actually getting skill. if as a bonus, if you want to throw in system design, I think that's really important. I went and watched all the videos from LeetCode. He has 2 system design, one for complete beginners and then just a regular one. I watched all those videos. I could use to go through those videos again, and maybe even more. But that's also a really good resource. LeetCode system design courses. Anyway, but we have these 2 pillars: LeetCode and a personal project, and a bonus one if you want. But these 2 pillars I would focus on. And then the third thing is applying to jobs in the right way. What is applying to job in the right way? Applying to a job in the right way means you are putting extreme volume. Because let's be honest, getting interviews a lot of time is luck. So you need to be putting extreme volume. And I recommend creating a tracker, because what happens to me whenever I've hit the job market, I feel like I've just been applying to every single job and no one's responding. And then if I create a tracker, I realize, oh man, I've actually only applied to 22 jobs. In my mind, it feels as if I applied to thousands, but it was actually only 22. So I would recommend having a tracker. So apply to a job, add it to your tracker, put when you applied, then try to find people at the company. I would reach out to people and I would say, do you have any recommendations to make my application stand out? But following up with people, reaching out to real people, going to tech meetups, reaching out to people you know who work at a company and trying to get referrals. Your chances of getting an interview are much higher if you get a referral. But essentially, don't just apply and do nothing. Apply, put it in your tracker, and try to make contact with somebody at the company. That's applying the right way. And if you do a volume, you will get interviews. And if you have the first 2, you have a project and you're getting good at LeetCode, you'll be able to pass the interviews. So that's it. I know it's a lot. It is a lot. It's hard. It takes a lot of work to break in, but it is worth it. I mean, I love being a software engineer. I might make a whole nother video of this, but essentially you get to build stuff, which is really fun. I mean, there's parts of it that are hard. Sometimes I'm really frustrated when my code doesn't work, or when I am having trouble articulating myself in a meeting, or when I'm trying to relax, but my mind keeps thinking about the code. Yeah, there's hard parts too, but overall, it's a fun job. You get to build stuff. I feel as if my mind is always growing. You get paid really well. It's not uncommon for engineers to make over 6 figures. You can work from anywhere. You can legitimately work from anywhere. I work from home a lot of days. I go to the office some days. I go work from a co-working space or cafe a lot of times. You can work from anywhere, as long as and especially if you're a productive engineer and your manager's really happy with your output, you have even more flexibility. So it's an awesome job, but it is hard to break in. But I do think that if you focus on these 3 things, you will succeed. And I am actually going into LeetCode now because I was able to get away with not knowing as many fundamentals back in 2017. But now I think that these fundamentals are really, really important in this age of AI, where AI can take care of most of the syntax for you. I think that understanding computer science concepts is really important. So that's why I'm spending time on LeetCode now, even though I already have a job. So if you found use in this video, leave me a thumbs up. I wish you best of luck. I hope you get that first job. Once you get that first job, it's easier to get that second one. And yeah, that's all I got for now. I'll talk to y'all on the next one.